Do you know someone who constantly breaks the rules? Or perhaps you know somebody who engages in high-risk behaviors. Or perhaps you know someone who can be feeling good one minute and then moody and rude and rough the next. If you answered yes to one or even two of these questions, chances are you are living with a tween or a teen or an immature partner. Keith the counselor here, and today we're going to talk about perspective taking, basic adolescent development, and how understanding the two can help you build better relationships with your tween or teen. Perspective taking is the ability to look past our own point of view so that we can consider how someone else may feel or think about something. Adolescent development usually occurs between 11 and, believe it or not, 24 years of age. Some common traits of adolescent development are as follows. Brain development. Tweens and teens, prefrontal cortex is usually developing around this time. This part of the brain helps with decision making, problem solving, planning, and self-control, just to name a few. While this part of the brain is developing, we can often see our adolescents make bad decisions, engage in highly impulsive behavior, and can also be filter deficient, basically just saying whatever comes to their mind, right or wrong.
This is the most stupidest thing I've ever heard of in my life.
While the prefrontal cortex is still developing, adolescents rely more on their amygdala, the old flight, fight, or freeze component of their brain, to make their decisions and do their problem solving for them. Only problem with all this is that the amygdala is connected to impulses, aggression, and emotions. All this, mind you, is out of their control. However, it can answer the question for you, is my kid crazy? They never used to act like this. In a way, they are a little crazy. But with a little bit of time and a little perspective, you can help them work through it all. Engaging in risk-taking behaviors. Since the prefrontal cortex, remember, the old problem-solving, decision-making part of the brain, is the last part of the brain to develop during adolescence, it's not uncommon to see our kids engage in risk-taking behavior. Risk-taking behaviors, such as smoking, sex, drugs, and stealing, can seem more appealing to adolescents because they don't quite understand the consequences that can be associated with their decisions yet.
You call this a party? I'm a golden goddess! Show us how drunk you are!
And then there was the social explosion. From birth till around 9 to 11 years old, you were most likely the center of your child's world. Now though, you may notice he or she cares more about his or her friends, spends more time locked in his or her room, and seems to be drifting apart from the family. This too can be common during adolescence as kids start to develop their own sense of identity and start to develop their own social life outside of the home. Finally, it's good to note that adolescents feel emotions at least 2 to 4 times as intensely as we do. So if you take something that you've been feeling really intensely about lately, times that by 2 or 4 at least, and you can get an idea of how intensely our adolescents are feeling emotions. It's overwhelming, isn't it? Adolescence truly is a perfect storm of hormones, physical growth, emotional growth, brain development, and social explosion. A little perspective taking can help separate yourself from your child's attitudes, behaviors, and lack of self-control. Ultimately, your child's behaviors are not a reflection on you or your parenting skills. You can also use a little perspective taking to answer the age-old parenting question. I mean, why do you keep acting like this? Honestly, I would wager that they don't know either. A lot of this comes down to realizing how little control we have over our kids' actions and behaviors. And it can be super frustrating. You can have a great conversation with your kid about something they got in trouble for in school, and then the next thing you know, they turn around and do the same thing the next day and get in trouble for the same exact thing again. While adolescence will affect each child differently, we can still use the basic knowledge of adolescent development to help deepen our perspective of what our kids may be going through. With a little perspective, we can learn to be a little more patient with our kids and ourselves, give ourselves a little more grace, and remember that no matter how intense things seem in the moment, they eventually will pass. Hey there, you enjoying this content so far? Hit the little subscribe button and the notification button so you can be notified when these new videos come out. So now that we defined perspective taking and we also discussed some of the basic elements of adolescent development, let's look at how we can combine those together to create deeper and better relationships with our kids. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to think about your own experience as an adolescent. Was it easy? Was it hard? Somewhere in between? Were you a rule follower? Did you break all the rules? Were you somewhere in between there too? Did you listen to your parents? Did you find yourself spending more time in your room? Did you care more about your friends? And while our kids' experiences are completely different than ours in a lot of situations, we can still use our own experiences to develop more of that perspective we've been talking about. If you'd like to go a little deeper with this exercise, you can take out a journal or a piece of paper or open some sort of electronic document and answer the following questions. Were there things that seem insignificant now that seemed intense or important to you back then? Were you overly dramatic, moody, reclusive and not wanting to be around your parents? Did you blame them for what you were going through? These are all good emotions and memories you can use to help develop a little more perspective on what your child may be going through right now. The second strategy you can use is just talking with your kid. Here are some things to think about when having that conversation. Set up a time to hang out and just get to know your child. Learn to develop a non-judgmental listening style to really hear what your child is saying. Using perspective to help you remember that maybe something seems insignificant to you, but it probably means the world to them from their own perspective. When listening, try to validate what he or she is telling you. Also, think marathon and not a short race when working with your child. Using perspective that your child is potentially going through a lot and thinking more long-term will be helpful. And with some of these strategies, what works today may not work tomorrow, but will work again the next day. And thinking more long-term will be helpful. The third strategy you can use is talk to other parents about their experiences with their tweens and teens. This can help give you some perspective and also make you realize that you may not be the only one going through what you're going through if you are having a hard time. You may also be able to learn from other parents some tips on what has worked for them in helping building a better relationship with their teen. Ultimately, I like to think of perspective taking as the first step into developing more empathy, more compassion, and more understanding of what our kids are going through. Make sure you check out the links below for a cheat sheet PDF that summarizes all the main points we talked about in this video. Also, there'll be a link to a parent perspective worksheet that you can use to help develop more perspective and understanding when working with your tween or teen. And when you're checking out those PDFs below, make sure you leave a comment of any other tips or strategies you've used that others can utilize, in addition to the ones I provided on this video that other parents can use to help develop more perspective when working with their tween or teen. And if you'd like to leave a comment of any other topics that you're interested in learning about, feel free to leave some there too as well. If you like this video, please make sure you hit the like and the subscribe button. Until next time, this is Keith the Counselor.